In this video, I'm gonna answer the most important questions about Google Stitch. Who is it for? Is it good enough to implement in a professional design workflow? What does it lack? What tools does it replace? And how does it compare to other similar AI tools like UX Pilot? I'll also show you some cool things that Stitch can do right now. And by the end of the video, you will know if it's the right tool for your needs. Hi, my name is Jad. On this channel, I bring you the most effective ways to implement AI in your design workflow. I'm sure you've heard about Google Stitch by now. It's an AI tool for UI design. It was called Galileo before, and Google purchased it last year, and they rebranded it to Stitch. I made multiple videos about Galileo in the past. It was one of the first AI tools for design, but it was super basic. Well, now Google released a huge update that completely changes what this tool can do. And I'm here to tell you exactly what it does and if it's the right tool for you. And before we begin, I have to mention that it's still in beta, so some of the downsides I'm gonna talk about today are due to it not being complete. But it's Google and they tend to keep apps in beta for a long time. But hopefully we'll start seeing quicker updates now that the big release is out. So what is Stitch? Okay, let's make one thing clear. Stitch is a vibe design tool, and Google is introducing it that way. So don't expect more from it. It's not gonna be a professional design tool, and it's not gonna replace Figma or Framer. But it does replace AI coding tools like Lovable and Figma Make. It is in fact a direct competitor to Figma Make. Now, where it gets interesting is how it compares to UX Pilot. If you've seen my previous videos, I use UX Pilot a lot, but Stitch still doesn't replace it for me as a professional UI UX designer. UX Pilot has more professional features and more control and better quality UI. On the other hand, Stitch is free and easier to use. That's why it's great for non-designers. Let's go over what Stitch can do and then I'll compare it to UX Pilot. At the surface, it's a very familiar interface where you have an input for an AI chat. We're all familiar with this by now. You can choose the size of the design that you want and the model that you're going to use. If you have 3.1 Pro available, use that. It will come up with better quality code for the UI. It also has an option to redesign an existing UI from a screenshot using Nano Banana Pro, and the ability to chat to ideate before starting to design. If you start to ideate with it, it will have all of the context of your ideation before you start building the UI. Now, of course, as usual, enter the prompt and see what it gives you. Now here I entered a prompt to test this tool to see how accurate it can generate the UI. And immediately after you submit any prompt, it's gonna give you a style guide on the side here. I mean, this is not very useful. They call it design system, but it's not a design system. It's just a very basic style guide. And then you get the UI generated right here on the canvas. I like seeing design tools have a canvas so that you can organize your designs and pages. Now, if I click on the generated UI, you will be able to see the prompt here and the response that breaks down what it created. And then at the top, you have a few options to modify this UI, to preview, and to generate more things using this UI. For example, you can select multiple pages and generate a prototype, which is a really cool feature they have. It's one of the more powerful features that Stitch has. I'll get to that in a second. Then you have variations, so you can create multiple variations for your design, or regenerate, or create a mobile version for a desktop app. And finally, you have the ability to generate a predictive heat map, which will analyze the page and tell you where the user will have the most attention on which elements are most prominent on your page. It can be somewhat useful for your UX. Then under modify, you have edit, annotate, and design system. Edit is going to make the screen all clickable, but you're not actually manually editing anything here except the text. So if you select a text element, it's going to show you edit text. Otherwise, you can only edit with AI. And you cannot select components here. You can only select single elements. Then you have the preview, which will open your design in a new browser page. And finally, under more, you have the view code or copy to Figma or export or download. And the export has really cool features inside of it. I'll show you in a bit. Now let's get back to the features under the generate button. If you click on instant prototype, it's going to analyze your design and create a prototype that is interactive and clickable throughout your whole design. When you generate a prototype, it's going to show up like this. You can double click to open it, and then you're going to be able to see the pages that are included in your prototype on the left side bar. And here you can add more screens or generate more screens. And then on the right side, you have a few things to modify, like the screen size, refresh, and then this button that hides or shows your hotspots where you can click. And you can see here, the element that is clickable has a dotted outline. So now if I click on the routes button in the menu here, it will take me to the second page. Now the cool thing you can do here is you have the edit button at the top. If you click on edit, you will leave the preview and now you can modify your prototype. Say for example, you want this button to take you to another page. You can click on connect to screen. So if it didn't do it automatically, you can manually add the links between screens. But the cool thing here is that you can click on imagine new screen. So it will analyze what this button does and it will create a completely new UI page that it thinks this button should take you to. So if I click it now, it's going to start creating a new page. And this will be added to my design outside of the prototype. And there we go. It gave me a completely new page. And I like this because it's not very traditional in terms of layout. It is getting a little bit creative, so that's cool. And now in my prototype, if I click on this button, it will open up this interface for me. And then I have a few clickable elements here that will take me back to another page. So I really like this edit prototype tool that they have here. Good editing capability for prototypes. So and now back in my design, I can see the new page that I created. It's on the canvas as well. Now, one thing I didn't like here is that the design it's creating is not responsive. And I saw that over and over again. This is for desktop, and then for mobile, it's all messed up. But it has an option to create a mobile version of your design. So the design itself is not going to be responsive. You have under generate at the top, there's a mobile app version. I clicked on that, and then it gave me this UI here. It includes all of the same elements that we have for desktop, but it's more for a mobile friendly design. Now that's a downside for me because I want the design to adapt and be responsive. I don't want completely different code for the mobile design. Now let me show you something really cool here. You can select multiple screens or one screen and then click on export. And here you have a lot of cool options. The first option is to move this project into AI Studio, Google AI Studio, which will be a powerful AI coding tool that will take this design and actually build it for production ready. So out of Stitch, you get the code, but it's not packaged and production ready. So you only get the front end code here. But if you move it to AI Studio, it will give you the complete package. Here's what happens when you click on AI Studio and then click on Build with AI Studio at the bottom. It opens up a studio project. It attaches the screenshot, so it's going to rebuild it for you. But it's also giving it two text files here, one HTML and one Markdown. And these include all of the code that it needs to know based on your design and all of the requirements. You can read them here. You can see what it's transferring from Stitch to AI Studio. And in this HTML file here, it includes all of the styles and the classes. And it also adds a prompt to start building this. So it gives you everything you need to start building this product. Now the other export options you have here, you can export to Figma, and this will convert your design into Figma files, and then you can paste them directly into Figma, which is awesome. And then you have Jules, so that way you can convert your project into GitHub as well. It will also give you a zip file or copy the code and use it anywhere you want. You can also connect it to any MCP. You can set up your MCP right from within here, and that's really cool. You can use it with any other AI tool or any other AI builder. And then here you have a very interesting option, which is a project brief. This feature alone makes it clear that this is a vibe designing tool. What this does is it will take your design and it will come up with project requirements. And that's clearly when you're vibe designing and you don't have requirements, you come up with a design and then you come up with the requirements. And this is absurd to me, but I guess this is what vibe designing is. I tried it before and it wasn't working properly, but you get the idea behind it. Let's see if it's gonna work this time. There we go. It added a document on the canvas. But as I found out earlier, it's not communicating well with the UI that I created. Every single time the project brief tells me here that it needs context about what I'm creating, so it doesn't know what I'm creating. It doesn't have the actual UI that I created. I think this is a bug and it will be fixed. Yeah, as I said, it's still in beta, so some things are expected to not work properly. And the last feature I want to show you here is the heat map. If you select a design and then go to generate, you can generate a predictive heat map. And this is what it looks like. It is pretty accurate in terms of the design itself. The AI is analyzing the UI and predicting where the users will have the most attention on, which elements grab the most attention. This button here seems to be grabbing the most attention, and the numbers at the top, plus the visual in the center. And looking at the design, this makes sense. This button is very prominent in the UI, and the numbers grab some attention. So it is somewhat accurate. Now let's compare this same prompt that generated this UI here with UX Pilot. So here's the result in UX Pilot. It gave me a more interactive UI, better quality UI. Let me show you why. First of all, this design here is completely responsive right out of the box. I don't need to generate a different UI for mobile. If you change the screen size here, you will notice how it's adapting, and very accurately, to say the least. I'm gonna click on preview here. Here's the preview from UX Palette. I'm gonna select mobile at the top, and you can see how it adapts very well to the mobile size. So that's one thing that UX Palette is better at. Another thing is the quality of the UI that's coming out. It's more interactive and more production ready in UX Pilot. This is the UI I got in Stitch, but in UX Pilot, everything here is interactive. I can move the globe here, for example. I can zoom in on it and scroll around all of these locations on the globe. Plus, the chart here is interactive. You can modify the data points that you have here. Just cool. Double click on it to reset, which is awesome. Small things like this make UX Pilot a more professional and production ready UI generator for me. There's a couple of other features in UX Pilot that are not available in Stitch. These features make UX Pilot a more professional tool for me. One of them is when you're generating a UI, you have the create flow feature. And with this feature, you can add multiple pages so that they come out consistently with the exact requirements that you have. It also has the generate flow with AI, so it will analyze your prompt and suggest all of the pages that are required for your app and what their content is, and you can modify them. Like, let's say journaling app here. And if I click on generate flow, there we go. It created prompts for all of the pages that I need in this app. And of course, I can modify them. In Stitch, the AI will analyze their prompt and it will generate the pages that it thinks you need without asking you or without the ability to modify the pages or the content of the pages. And again, this is the difference between vibe designing and professional design. Another professional feature that is available in UX Pilot and not in Stitch is the manual editing. And this is really important for me, especially as a designer. I don't want to import my design to Figma to do some editing. I want to be able to do it inside of the platform that I'm generating the UI with. So here, if I go into edit, you can edit the whole page or edit a section with AI or manual edit. I love the manual edit here because it breaks down all of your components and you can select complete components altogether, not just single elements. And you can save components and reuse them in your design. All you have to do is click on Symbols tab at the top and add your component that you have selected. And then you will have it here and you'll be able to use it anywhere on your design. You can drag it and drop it anywhere. Let's add it here, for example, and it will adapt to the layout properties, and it's all responsive. See, if I add it here, it's gonna take the whole width of the page. But if I add it within this card, for example, it's gonna take the size of this. If I add it here, it's gonna be smaller. So it's really cool playing around with components and reusing them and manually editing your design. You have all of the elements on the sidebar here, and you have all of the layers on the left side. So it's more closer to a design software and not just AI. And that's awesome. Also, if you select something, you can see the style and the layout properties in the sidebar as well. You can modify all of these things, and that's super pro editing capabilities inside of UX Pilot. Here's another example of an app I created in Stitch. It decided on its own to generate all of these pages. I didn't ask it to do that. But yeah, when it generates multiple screens altogether, it gets consistent. Here you can see the tab bar is consistent somewhat around all of the pages. I even generated more pages and the tab bar stayed consistent, which is cool. So who is Stitch for? As I said, it's marketed as a vibe design tool and not a professional design tool, and I'm glad that Google themselves are clear about this point. So I would say it's for stakeholders and project managers looking to ideate and communicate requirements with their team, or entrepreneurs looking to come up with concept UIs. Basically, anyone except designers and developers, because designers need more UI UX features, and developers need better quality results. The features they decided to implement makes it clear that it's a vibe design tool, and their goal is non-designers. So what does Stitch lack? I think if you're a professional designer, you'll find a lot of the essential features missing, like manual editing and layout tools, reusable components, app flow and app content, and responsive design. Now, what is good about Stitch? It currently has a few standout features that are interesting, to say the least. In terms of compatibility, it has a lot of export options, including Figma, which is great. I love the canvas feature that you can move things around and organize your project. And I think the best feature they have in Stitch is the prototyping tools. It's funny how you don't have manual editing features for the UI, but you have manual editing features for the prototype, and that's awesome. UX Pilot has prototyping features as well, where it generates a prototype automatically with AI, but it doesn't have the manual editing features that Stitch has. So that's a plus for Stitch. And the biggest advantage that Stitch has is that it's completely free, right now at least. So there's no reason not to try it, at least, even if you're a designer. It can be fun to play around with. But this tool being free is a huge advantage over all of the competitors. And of course, it's Google and they're able to do that. But yeah, take advantage of it. I think it should be clear by now if Stitch is the right tool for you or not. If you're not a designer, you should try it out. But if you're a professional designer, there are better AI tools out there. For me personally, I'm sticking with UX Pilot. I find it very powerful for generating UI with high level of accuracy and control. But if you're not a designer, you should definitely try it out. It's so much fun to play around with, and being able to come up with all of these UIs was such a nice interface. I hope this video was useful to clear things up regarding Stitch. I will keep an eye out for future updates. Make sure you're subscribed to get my latest takes on AI and UI UX. Now, let's get back to work. Cheers.